Welcome to this week's TechA video newsletter on Monday, the 7th of April 2008. TechA is where we analyze the key indices of the CAC, DAX, Dow, FTSE, Nasdaq and Nikkei over the coming week, and we also look back over the previous week to see what's been happening with all of the indices and to see where they're likely to go. So here we have the CAC 40. As previously noted, we had a very strong bullish move not so long ago. There was some consolidation just beneath 4700. There was, with this sort of tight consolidation at so much as a resistance that we have here, they tend to signify breakouts. Obviously it's not a given, but that's what sometimes this means. If we have very tight consolidation underneath a resistance, tends to signify a breakout. We got that, and what we can see here is a possibility of support being found at 4900. If we've got that, there's a very tight range between 4900 and 5000, and if it does break this is quite a key break, because it does mean there's a fair bit of leg room, so to speak, for the CAC to then move further up. So this real point of consolidation, this range that we have between 4900 and 500, is a real turning point for the CAC, and we do have some relatively thin candles at resting on support, not dissimilar to what we've seen previously at this point. What we need is a clear break of 5,000, then we can look towards the possibility of even further gains up to 5,200. So that's the CAC. Moving now on to the DAX. Similar story, as it were, with the DAX. Both European indices, the CAC and DAX, CAC being French, DAX being German, found support at 6,800 quite nicely, resting nicely on support now. There's a bit more room with the DAX up to 7,000, so there's a chance that we're likely to see some relatively strong bullish activity within this overall consolidation between 6,700 and or certainly between 6,800 and 7,000. Once again, if we get a break of 7,000, then we can look up towards 7,200 and a range between 7,000 and 7,200 if we get that. For now, we're likely to see it trade within this range, certainly for the majority of this week. Moving now on to the Dow. The Dow managed to sort of break, almost as there's like a resistance within a tiny, just beneath a tiny sort of range. We have a resistance of around about 12,600. If we look at the intraday, if I can get the intraday up, just hold on a sec. If we look at the intraday, we can see that it's at 12,680. So not a massive amount of movement, but what it does suggest is that it is actually within this upper range. We need to see it break around about 12,700. If we get that break at 12,700, that's going to be a really strong positive move for the Dow, and a very strong likelihood of a move towards out of consolidation and into some possibly bullish activity where we could say an even higher range. So there's a chance now for the Dow to sort of really break out of the doldrums that it's been in, this relatively tight consolidation, and move out and back into not so much a real trend that was before, but certainly into some better territory where we're likely to see some stronger gains. The range is between around about 12,700 and 13,250, 13,300 would be the next range that we're looking at, but we need to see a break above 12,700 quite clearly. We're not getting at that at the moment looking at the intraday. Moving now on to the FTSE. We can see the market's relatively bullish this week, starting to turn from the very negative view that we saw over last week. Similar, in fact, to the Dow, putting in a trend line. We have a resistance at 6100, and it's moving within this broader range of between 5900 and 6175. It's still resting at the intraday at around about 6,000, so that's not too bad. It's a midpoint between this broader consolidation, so we're likely to see possibly some consolidation around this point over the next coming week, with a view possibly of breaking above this resistance. If we get a break above this resistance caused by the top and these 2 points here and this bottom here, we're likely to see a return to some relatively strong bullish activity within the FTSE that could lead us well up to around about 6,400. Moving now on to the Nasdaq. Obviously, with the Dow being very bullish, it's a given that the Nasdaq usually returns a similar favour. We see that the Nasdaq is heading towards about 1920, somewhere around there, where there is not so much a massively strong resistance. Well, in fact, actually, looking back on it, it could actually be quite a strong resistance at around about 1920. So we're looking to a range between about 1820 and 1920. The Nasdaq, we could see it trade within that range, certainly within this coming week, but it's looking a little bit weak at the moment. Moving now finally onto the Nikkei. The Nikkei has broken out of a resistance at 13,000, upper range around about 14,000. We're likely to see some very strong bullish moves. If we see the continuation of this current bullish activity within the Dow and the FTSE and the CAC and DAX, we're going to see it amplified 100 times with the Nikkei. So look for a clear break at 1400. If we get that, we're going to see it trade even higher up to 15,000. I think probably the Nikkei is going to be one of the stronger moves, the strongest moving indices over the coming week, and we're likely to see some huge moves, as we can see already. If we look at the intraday data on the Nikkei, we can see it opened at 13,260. Within the space of a relatively short period, it's moved up by over 150 odd points. So as we can see, the Nikkei is moving very strongly indeed and looks very positive for the coming week. So there we have it. The CAC looking to break resistance and trade. Well, is breaking resistance, resting on and looking to trade within this range. Similar story for the DAX, but with a larger range. The Dow is looking to break above a resistance at 12,750. The FTSE 2 is trading within a range around about 5,900 to 6,175. The Nasdaq following similar pattern to the Dow, and the Nikkei moving very strongly indeed. So that's this week's Tech-A video newsletter on Monday the 7th of April 2008. We'll be back next Monday with an update on what's happened this week and with further analysis for the following week. Thanks very much.